all about plantar fasciitis. So plantar fasciitis in layman's terms frequently occurs when the arches have collapsed and the plantar fascia on the bottom of your foot is overstretched, and that can lead to inflammation, which then leads to a feeling of pain and maybe even tightness, and it seems like stretching it would be a good idea. Not necessarily, not when you're doing it on inflammation. So one of the ways of getting out of that inflammation would be to check out your alignment, making sure, number one, that your hips are not forward. So that's number one. Number two would be get yourself out of running shoes, athletic shoes, well, certainly any shoe with a heel. And most athletic shoes with cushioning have a heel, whether it's on the inside or the outside of the shoe. If you're in a heel, you're actually chronically shortening your calves. And you're pushing your pelvis forward, even if it's to a little degree. And here comes in part of the problem. That pelvis forward and the tightening of your calves is part of the whole back chain of your body being tight, whether it's your calves, your hamstrings, your bottom, your low back, even your mid back. That's all connected, and it's all a part of a problem, which means the path of weight is not falling in your heel where it needs to be, and it's affecting your plantar fasciitis, or your plantar fascia, thus plantar fasciitis. So let's look at the first thing and the only stretch I would do, and that is a calf stretch here on a rolled up yoga mat, a half dome foam roller, anything where you can put your toes up on something, so even a foam block that isn't too tall for you. You want your hip to still remain over your ankle, and then facing forward, ribs in your body, you're just looking for how far do you inch your non-stretching leg forward, keeping your hip back so that you feel a stretch in your calf. So that's the outside calf muscle, the gastroc, and then if you bend the knee, you get a stretch into your soleus. So you'll be able to tell the deeper calf muscle. You'll be able to tell where your tightness is, and maybe it's both. Then you'll switch to the other side, and you'll notice a difference. First, back my hips up. Then I notice that this time my left leg can come further forward, meaning my right calf is not as tight as my left. Just something to notice. Bend, get into my soleus, see how that goes. After you stretch, you should always strengthen. No matter what you're stretching, you should always strengthen. I'm using these two yoga blocks to pretend they're stairs, but you can also use two yoga blocks, but stairs in your house will work as well. And we aren't going to hang out in a stretch. That's gravity, and it's not going to do us any good. What we want to do is raise our heels, be on all of our toes, not rolling out to one side, and then slowly we're loading the muscles as we slowly go down. So that eccentric loading, slow, slow, slow. That eccentric loading and trying not to shift my pelvis too far forward, which is why I have my hand on the wall, because I know what I'd like to do is shift my pelvis forward. This, if you can do this 10 times, great, but do it super slowly and work up to 10 times. So you've now done it for your outer calf. You'll come back on. Sorry, I should have just stayed there. You'll bend your knees. I'm going to send my bum back a little bit. And you'll do the same thing. And here's the challenge. You don't want to be changing the bend in your knees. You want to be changing what you're doing at your ankle. So now I'm working my soleus. So that one you do both ways as well. So then we go to the wall. You can have your forearms on the wall or your hands on the wall. You get yourself in a lunge position, And now we're doing the heel raise with the back leg. So I want to think of moving it from my heel. Don't even think about my knee. It's doing some things, but I want to think about my heel coming in and going back. Same thing. I'm doing it with a bent knee. It never completely straightens. So again, that's in my soleus, and depending on how much your toes can flex, it could change. And then I'll do it with straight legs. There we go. And sometimes you still want to do it from your knees. And then you, again, I would try to do 10 of these on each side. So 10 with your knees bent, 10 with your legs straight. Now we come to a really fun part. I am going to roll up my yoga mat, not just because it's nice to put your knee on the cushioned part, but because I want to slide my foot on this washcloth. So get yourself here in this position with your heel on the washcloth. First thing, think about plugging your femur into your hip, and then you're going to bend at the knee and slowly drag your heel in. If you need to, tuck your tail to stay in neutral. I didn't go out all that slowly, and I should have gone more slowly. This is actually one of my favorite exercises. There's balance involved, keeping my hands on my hips to keep them honest. And then you'll switch to the other side. So 10 times on each side, if you can, of heel slides. And then the last one is the deadlift. And it's a single leg deadlift. So we're going to imagine that we've got a metal pole that is on our back, from our head to our bum. And we're going to get in this little bit of a bent knee position. And as you know, the deadlift would happen here. But let's be really conscious about it and think about, we want to turn on the back side of our body that needs the strengthening first. So I'm going to imagine that I'm moving my leg to straighten it, but I don't. This heavy, heavy pole on my back is keeping me in neutral, but it's also preventing me from lifting up. So once I've imagined doing that, it really does fire up my muscles, and then I lift the back leg up. Woo! And I straighten my knee if I can, and it doesn't really matter that much what's happening with my back foot. This is my bad balancing leg, and you can see that. But that's okay because I'm working on it and I'm doing it. So then we switch to the other side and we think the same way about firing up here before we come up. So I'm imagining pushing against that metal pole, and when I'm ready, pushing through my whole foot. I balance, doesn't matter if I point or flex. And then I might try to get taller out of this standing leg. And my medial glute, my bum, my whole hamstring area, it's all alive. 10's a lot to ask for on each side. I'd try to do 5 on each side.